I have a feeling Jaylen Ramsey's hamstring is feeling just a little better this morning. The Dolphins agreeing to terms on a record-setting contract extension with their standout corner. We're going over that on this emergency podcast here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL Draft Lead for the 33rd team. You can find all of our shows here on the Locked On Network on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Tip of the cap to our everydayers, because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We don't just say it, we live it. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Breaking news this morning. Miami Dolphins cornerback Jaylen Ramsey agreeing to terms per Cam Wolfe and Ian Rappaport of NFL Network on a 3-year contract extension that makes him the NFL's highest paid cornerback on an annual average salary basis, a 3-year, $72.3 million deal done by David Mulugheta of Athletes First. Jaylen Ramsey, of course, was the lone non-participant of players on the 53-man roster yesterday at practice, listed on the injury report with a hamstring. And I think this tells you just about everything you need to know. Ian Rappaport, 10 minutes ago. Love a good emergency podcast on the Friday before week 1. 3-year, $72.3 million extension includes $55.3 million in guarantees. That was agreed to a couple of days ago, but Ramsey wanted to wait until he was back on the field to release it. Safe to say he'll be at practice today. There you go. I think that was foreshadowed. We're putting on the detective hat here. Cam Wolfe yesterday sent out a tweet. And the post from Cam Wolfe yesterday that I saw and my eyebrows immediately went up and said, that's interesting, and that's probably deliberate. 21 hours ago, Jaylen Ramsey not spotted at Dolphins practice today, TBD for Sunday versus Jaguars. Worth noting, Ramsey's experience and pedigree give him ability to still play with little to no practice. You put all of this together. How much of this contract buildup was a part of Ramsey's approach to the start of the season? I don't know for sure. But it certainly feels like the kind of thing that you would have wanted to have solved before you go into week 1 against Jacksonville. And the Dolphins, they kind of were pushing deadlines here, but we got this one done. And I like this move, and there's a reason why I like this move, in spite of the fact that I do think a cornerback going into an age 30 season, getting significant guarantees, is a bit of a acknowledged risk. There was 2 years left on his current contract. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff. But just acknowledging the known terms, the $55 million in guarantees will clinch Ramsey the highest earnings at the position. That's probably a part of the PR win. And we've talked with the Tua contract and the Tyreek renegotiation. There is a significant game that is played within the media about finding your PR wins. And for Jaylen Ramsey to have Pat Surtain II get his contract extension with the Broncos at 41, for Ramsey to come in, or at 41, 24, and then to get Ramsey to come in at 24.1, which is where I was going with 41, PR win, highest AAV. That market's going to continue to get reset. You're going to see Sauce Gardner's probably going to go up over that when his time comes to get a contract extension for the New York Jets. And you really hadn't had a market reset at corner for 2 years. The highest earnings at the position is another storyline for Jaylen Ramsey that is part of the PR win for one of the Dolphins' most important players. And I did the crossover with Tony Wiggins yesterday with Locked On Jaguars. I did the Locked On NFL Scouting show with Joe Marino, and we were picking this game. And I did say, like, the presence of Jaylen Ramsey is a significant one for Miami and my confidence to win this game, because Jacksonville does present a number of matchups. And I had a whole show I was just getting ready to start pushing record on, as far as like the storylines and the keys to victory against Jacksonville, and the contract drops. And thankfully, I had a whole section about what happens if Jaylen Ramsey doesn't play. Ian Rappaport alluding to, now that this contract is done, the contract, or he's going to practice today and be at practice today, certainly gives you the impression that there's an intent to play. I thought Mike McDaniel, a little earlier in the week when he had his latest press availability on, I think it was Wednesday, he was asked about Jaylen Ramsey and kind of gave you like this roundabout, long-winded answer, kind of talking about there were no setbacks. Jaylen knows how important he is to the team, but didn't really address a lot of the question that was asked. And Mike does that sometimes, because Mike gets off on his sidebars, but and I'm not immune from my own sidebars, so that's no judgment to Mike, right? But at the same time, I thought Mike's answer was very exceptionally incomplete, which kind of gave you the inkling, like, are they working on something else? This kind of mysterious injury that we only found out when they had to release the injury report that it was a hamstring issue. And it had been very ho-hum for the past couple of weeks, whatever it was. And this is the dude that came back from a full meniscus tear at half the rate of what the expected recovery window was. And it was what was kind of a ho-hum, don't worry about it, not that big of a deal type of situation, that suddenly it's Thursday, the week of week one, and he still hasn't practiced. And now the contract's done, and now magically he is going to presumably be at practice today. I'll let you read between the lines on what that probably meant. We're going to get a little bit more into Ramsey's last few weeks, why I like this move for Miami. And then there's obviously some questions. We need to see the full terms as far as the salary cap breakdown. We'll get into a lot of that kind of stuff that's coming up next here on this immediate reaction to Jaylen Ramsey getting a contract reset, market reset at the cornerback position for the Dolphins, just almost 48 hours away from kickoff for the 2024 season. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you are looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Here's one of the reasons why I once you kind of set the precedent with Tyreek Hill, right? Because Tyreek had 3 years left on his contract and got a reworked contract about a month ago. And now you have Jaylen Ramsey with 2 years left on his, and he already received $26 million, a little over $26 million in cash this season. Next year he was due for 19.5, and last year was current deal. But part of the reason why, like, I don't mind, it's a two-pronged reason why I don't mind them addressing this contract. I guess it's three-pronged reasons why. One, I think Jaylen Ramsey is in a very unique position to age exceptionally gracefully as a defensive back in the NFL. Because I especially think in this system, you're not looking at an outside corner anymore. And he was phenomenal last year. And teams just say, you know what? We ain't going to play the game with you. Like, good luck. We watched the Raiders throw the ball at you a bunch and throw 2 picks. We'll watch Mac Jones almost throw pick 6 in your first game back. We're just not going to throw the ball at you. Playing and returning to a player who can move around to be a defensive weapon in coverage, draw more coverage assignments. I think he's physical enough and long enough to do so against middle of the field targets and tight ends and kind of shadow guys. And it's not just the world that you have to live at to be a freak athlete to live on the outside. He found 500 plus snaps with the Rams in each of his last 2 years there. It was extremely impactful in the nickel, where things happen differently, and it allows you to age a little bit more gracefully. You're a little bit more leveraged with what's around you in the defense. And I also think he can play safety. So there's an element there that I think he's maybe a little bit more foolproof to the wall that comes for corners, because I don't think he's just a traditional corner. It's part of the reason why he's such a special player. Another part of the reason why I don't mind an adjustment for Jaylen Ramsey. Jaylen Ramsey played for $10 million in cash last year. Exceptionally low dollar amount. When he was traded to Miami, it felt like he kind of did the Dolphins. I don't want to say he did the Dolphins a solid, but remember, they reworked some of that deal when he first got here. They put 4 years on the back end of it. His cap hit was like less than $5 million. He received $10 million in compensation last year. And for a player like that, you look at a 2-year window of now you're at 30, 36. So you're averaging 18, you're getting 19 in 2025 as your 3-year window with what he was compensated for when he was acquired by the team. I do think with the swelling of the salary cap, it's probably fair to say an adjustment in compensation, especially off the heels of getting $10 million last year. Like, I get it. I get it from his perspective a little bit. I'm thankful that this isn't something that's going to carry into the season. And that gets me into the last reason why, I don't mind the idea of doing it. You are a team that is very much having big picture aspirations. You're a team that has big ideas and grandiose plans for your year that, if everything comes together, I think you're physically capable of and talented enough to do as a football team. If this was going to be a sticking point, if this was going to be a sore spot, if this was going to be an issue, if his hamstring was going to hurt a little more and he wasn't going to be able to play against Jacksonville in week 1, now there's a detriment to the mission at hand, which is all hands on deck. Everybody go out there, perform at a high level. And from what the NFL Network reporting is from both Cam Wolfe and Ian Rappaport, you put 2 and 2 together. Sounds like we're going to get Jaylen Ramsey practice today. And then it sounds like we're going to get Jaylen Ramsey on Sunday against Jacksonville. And if the alternative of not doing a deal for a player that you had $18 million in void money for 2026 lined up for already because how you structured the contract when he first got here, but if you gave him an extension, that all doesn't hit at once. You're able to prorate that out across several seasons. You get the contract extension done now. No, hey, we got $55 million in guarantees. That's probably this year and next year guaranteed salary. What's the issue? Now, it's a 3-year extension. Is that 3 years onto the 2 years that he had left? Is this technically this year? Is the first of 3 years? Like, there's some terms here on this contract that, at least as of me immediately sitting down and recording this, which is why we don't do emergency podcasts on contracts all that often, because so much of this information is a slow trickle that comes out across the course of time. There's still a lot of unknown as far as what the ramifications are. I know people have questions like, what does this mean for Jalen Phillips? What does this mean for Javon Holland? What does this mean for X, Y, and Z? I don't know yet. But what I know is the way that his salary cap was set up was they restructured him this year. He was in a position to play last year in a contract year with a salary cap hit over $20-something million. That's probably going to be lower now, or they are going to have the flexibility to pull the lever and make it lower. And then there's at least one new year on the back end of this deal that prevents the prorated money that they've already had from all accelerating into one season that would effectively be equal to the salary cap hit of him being on the roster while not being on the roster. So there is a whole cash to cap ratio, and the Dolphins are in the top 6, I believe, in cash to cap spending ratio. They're not spending at a crazy rate like what Philadelphia is. I'll be interested to see what the new money looks like for Jaylen Ramsey. Is there new compensation this year? Is there not new compensation this year? He was already third in cash received this year amongst corners. He was behind A.J. Terrell, and I don't remember who the other one was off the top of my head, and I don't want to sit here and start typing it and looking into it. But the smoothing out of this, I think, is part of the big win for Miami, extending the runway for a player that you were already going to have significant resources invested into over the next 3 years, even though he's only under contract to play with you for 2 of those seasons. And the availability for what is not a small game on Sunday. And the question was, if the hamstring was going to be an issue, and now it's not an issue, he's back to practice. My question is, like, if it would have been bad enough to miss Jacksonville, Anthony Weaver alluded to yesterday, there's 2 games in 5 days. We got to be a little mindful of that. What was to say that the hamstring wouldn't have still been, quote unquote, a problem for Buffalo on Thursday? Like, you have less time. I've gotten enough smoke that something was going to get done with Jaylen Ramsey. I've been sitting around for 2 days waiting to do this show. And I believe Ian Rappaport said that. Ian Rappaport said this deal's been generally agreed to for a couple of days. Yeah, 3-year, $72.3 million extension includes $55.3 guaranteed, was agreed to a couple of days ago, but Ramsey wanted to wait until he's back on the field to release it. Now, what you read between the lines on all that, whatever, I'll let you be the judge. So it'd not be the first time a player's had an issue. It would not be the first time Jaylen Ramsey's had an issue, had a contract adjustment in some kind, or been traded to change teams, like when he was in Jacksonville and couldn't play with a back issue. And then he gets traded to the Rams and magically is all good to go, and he plays like that week. Regardless, the fact that it's done with what the Dolphins want to achieve this year, I think is a win. Now, we have a few final odds and ends to tie together here on this emergency podcast. We're going to get into that next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins Emergency Podcast. Dolphins extending Jaylen Ramsey. Stick with us. Coming your way next. If you are looking for a little bit of action on Sunday with the games, Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active users. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because, unlike in other apps on Prize Picks, it's you against the numbers. It's not you against 5 million other active users. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard, for example, gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. So let the #1 overall pick do a little bit of work for you this weekend. Chicago playing Tennessee. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy as well. So if your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and does not return, Prize Picks keeps your picks alive. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. So for Ramsey against Jacksonville, I think this opens back up the opportunity, assuming that he does play. And I know Mike McDaniel is doing his presser right now. Ramsey will return in some capacity to practice. McDaniel said he, quote, doesn't know if Ramsey will play Sunday versus Jacksonville yet. Ramsey hasn't practiced much in the past few weeks. I can't imagine Jaylen Ramsey is going to let this go against Jacksonville, his former team. First time playing his former team and not play. Will the Dolphins be firm with Jaylen Ramsey? Maybe. I'd be surprised. Kind of my general impression is that, they'll go through today. They've made some exceptions in the past with players like Teron Armstead, who they had a very unique plan for. I think consummate professional Jaylen Ramsey, even if there was a hamstring issue of a severity that would have prevented him through practicing on Thursday, you kind of expect a player like that. They, even at the beginning of camp, Like, everybody's getting vet rest days. Everybody's giving days off. And Ramsey, they let just go to town and just wreck shop at practice after practice after practice. You're seeing load management days for a lot of guys, not Jaylen Ramsey. So Mike can say whatever right things need to be said. But my expectation is that Jaylen Ramsey is going to play. Now, if he doesn't play, is that a loss for Miami? Yes. And if that's the case, and this was a bigger part of the piece of why he wasn't participating in the last few weeks, I'd be a little disappointed. As going to be a big gut punch if they don't win the game, but we'll never know. And I think we'll never know the truth of distribution of how much of this was what. But Mike's saying the right things of to be determined. We'll see. We don't know. But knowing Jaylen Ramsey, knowing what Ramsey was like coming back from a meniscus last year, knowing what Jaylen Ramsey was like at the beginning of training camp this year when everybody else was getting vet rest days and he was tearing everybody to shreds, I kind of expect to see it. I'm kind of operating in the assumption that he'll be a part of the mix for Miami. That's Jaylen Ramsey getting a contract adjustment. New deal. The Miami Dolphins set to face the Jacksonville Jaguars at Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday, 1 o'clock. We'll have keys to victory a little bit later today. I guess today's a doubleheader because I didn't have this show planned, even though it was in the back of my mind, like, be ready to do it. It got done, which is part of the win for Miami in the build up to the season, which is a high expectations season for the Dolphins. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I will be back again soon to set the table. Jacksonville, Miami coming your way later today. Go Fins.